Richter says some of the best advice is to learn to read people. I would say reading people, I think learning what manipulation looks like in motion. So I think what people think, again, like what people think manipulative behavior looks like and what it actually looks like are two very different things. And, a really highly skilled manipulator, especially if you're talking about like a covert narcissist level, they can be really, really good and they can trip up a lot of people. But once you are onto it, you're like, oh, this does not add up. Like there are things here that do not add up. And that's kind of, I think, the beauty of problematic behavior is because at the core of it, there's a problem. And there's a reason a person's being manipulated. There's an end point, like it's a game, right? So if you wait around long enough, if you stay observant for long enough, you can see the end goal that person's going towards. And so yes, I think kind of, again, not to be like obsessive about it, not to feed anybody's like paranoia or fear or anything, but it can be interesting to learn kind of what the different ways a person can be manipulated and how manipulative people tend to go about it. There's an acronym, I have to write it out, I came up with a while ago. It's actually two acronyms. It's an acronym inside of an acronym. The acronym is called ICHIVE, and it stands for isolation, charm, hope, intimidation, violence, emotion. And then the acronym inside of that is one that you guys are probably familiar with, but I put my own spin on it, which is, it normally is FOG, but I changed it to be FLOG. So the emotion, the E for emotion is, so they manipulate based off of emotion. It's fear, love, obligation, and guilt. So that's how people tend to manipulate. We talked about another acronym last week, which is very similar. Let me write it down. The acronym is FLAGS, and it's fear, lust, anger, greed, and sympathy. So manipulative, I would say probably the top two there are the more primitive ones, which would be fear and anger. Because our most primitive emotions are like that fight or flight response, which fear and anger feed into. You can see this with politics. So people using, or probably a better example would be if you ever see a commercial for like a security system. Like those are terrifying. You've got this family with these cute children and this, it's dark and scary outside, and then you hear a noise and then the alarm goes off, and then the parents are like, whew, that was close. Thank goodness like little Sally and little Johnny are safe thanks to the security system. But it's manipulating, it's playing into those fears of, well, what if you didn't have this security system? What would have happened to your children? So it's interesting, I think, to look at commercials, because then you can really see different ways people are manipulated, how we all are manipulated. So, and then time, because manipulative people, they exploit vulnerabilities, but they target supply. They're after something, and they don't want to wait around for it, because that's what they do. Like they're after supply, like they're after money, they're after sex, they're after, I don't know, transportation or housing or status or public image, these kinds of things. They don't care. It generally has nothing to do with the person. They don't tend to have a type of person. They just have supply that they're after. This is why their partners tend to, they go all over the place. Like the people that they are with, one could be, a tall thin blonde. The next one could be, short, chubby brunette. The next one could be, you know, really voluptuous redhead. The next one could be a guy. And you're like, wait, what? Like, I didn't realize this person was bisexual, and now all of a sudden they are. Like, it can just be all over the place because they're targeting supply. They're not targeting people per se, but they're exploiting our vulnerabilities. Let's see. Oh, I was going to say about time, exploiting, learning to read people, taking time, because they're after something. They're after supply. So if you don't let them control the pace of this situation, if you don't get caught up in the whirlwind, they can try. They can sure try, and they generally will, to create that whirlwind where that dynamic is on their terms, where it's like, oh, I want to talk to you for hours upon hours every day. Oh, I want to see you. Oh, I want to. It's that intensity that we mistake for sincerity. It's that control that we mistake for caring. If we slow things down and we're like, you know what, I can't talk to you for hours every day. I've got things to do. I've got hobbies. I've got friends. I've got work. I have a full life. Then we're going to be less inclined to get caught up in that whirlwind. They will tend to move on because they want what they want and they want it now. They tend to be very impulsive, and they're not really known for playing the long game with these kinds of things. And plus, the longer you get to know a person, the more you can see, you can see their behavior, you can see their intentions. You can just tell more about, are things adding up with them, kind of what's going on there. And then two, paying attention to how you feel. I think this might even be one of the biggest clues, because when we're around people, like, pay attention to how you feel. Like, when you're around certain people, if you're around good friends, people that empower you and inspire you and nurture you and nourish you, and they're on your side, odds are you feel good, you feel relaxed, you feel clarity, you feel comfortable, you feel free to be yourself, right? And if you're around an emotional manipulator, things start to feel off. Things start to feel off fairly early on. And you might not even be able to pinpoint it at first, because this does take practice. But over time, you're like, that's weird. Like, it's weird the way that this guy looked at the waitress. It's weird the way that this woman got excited when I told her what I did for a profession, right? Or it's weird that this woman, her eyes lit up when I mentioned that my ex was an actress. Or it's weird that, I just met this person and now he's calling me hun. Or he's complimenting my body, saying like, oh, you have such nice legs. Things like that. When I told him, hey, I'm not looking to move quickly, I'm not trying to get sexual right away, they're making comments that are just their boundary pushes. So paying attention to those and paying attention to how they feel is, if you get in sync with all of that, you're going to be able to spot manipulative behavior, and you're going to be able to respond to it accordingly. Generally, like, getting out of there, like distancing yourself quickly from that person. And again, here's the other thing. So a lot of people, like what we've been talking, like the theme tonight, right? So because other people don't see this stuff for what it is, that's another level of crazy making. So it can be very hard to get validation of what we're experiencing. So if we're saying, this person was just saying that, complimenting me on my legs in kind of a creepy way, like it just made me a little bit uncomfortable. Or this guy was looking at the waitress and it just was weird. Like, Like I've seen guys look at waitresses before, but the way he looked at this waitress was weird. Other people, there's no shortage of well-intended bad advice out there. And it's very easy for people to like rationalize problematic behavior, especially if people want to see you in a relationship or if they're in a problematic relationship and they're like, well, I don't know, like my husband like totally ogles waitresses, or my wife, she keeps pushing me to make more and more money, or she opened up a bunch of credit cards I didn't know about. And so, because it's that cognitive dissonance again. So if we say, oh, well, what you're experiencing is problematic, then if I'm experiencing the same thing or something similar, or especially something worse, then odds are I'm going to rationalize what you're experiencing because I don't want to look at my own stuff. So getting like good advice can be really hard. It can be really difficult. So this is why it's helpful to have kind of a framework for understanding that's your own. And this goes back to like you thinking critically about a situation, you having your own framework for understanding, and you learning to rely on your own judgment. So even if everybody else in the room is saying, that's not a problem, it's okay, forgive and forget, nobody's perfect, that you can say, you know what, I'm not okay with this, and here's why, right? Like this is inappropriate for me. Not that you have to justify yourself to anybody, because you don't. Like just having a creepy vibe about somebody is enough reason to not do something, to not hang out with them, to cross the street, to lock your door, whatever. But it can help for you to turn inward and to get to know yourself enough to where you're like, okay, this is why I'm not comfortable with this situation. This person, they made a comment about my body. I thought it was really weird. They hugged me for a little bit too long. Like, you're just getting clear on what's not okay with you. And the more clarity that you can have, the more confidence it's going to give you about what you're experiencing. And it really is the best feeling in the whole wide world to just trust your judgment. So when something's off and everybody else is saying it's not a problem, for you to be like, yes, it is. It's a problem for me. And that's all that matters. And I'm out of here. Lots of love to you guys. You are not alone. You are not crazy. And you really can move forward and heal from this.